Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with something incredibly cool. We have our very first just straight up dinosaur from Ricsan Custom Toys. I have been acquiring quite a bit of their different kaiju figures. They have been an absolute gift to the kaiju collecting community, especially if you are a fan of articulated figures, but they haven't released just like your regular straight up dinosaur before. But as you can see, we definitely have one now, as we've got the Allosaurus, the dinosaur from the valley, aka from the Valley of Gwangi. And if you are a fan of dinosaurs, or have been since you were young and you are around my age, Gwangi is a movie that is going to mean a lot to you because it's a movie I grew up on. It's one of the earliest dinosaur films I remember seeing and enjoying as a child, and one of the many reasons that I fell in love with dinosaurs the way that I have. You can see some super cool artwork here on the front of the box. Not really a whole lot usually on the boxes when you move around, but then you usually have a very cool shot up here, which you can see again, another really neat shot of Gwangi. And then here on the back, some absolutely incredible art that was created by somebody. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it says it here. I don't know. Don't see it, but you can see again the image here on the back is fantastic. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check out our Allosaurus. So in typical Ricsan Custom Toys fashion, they have actually included some extras, but these are extras we have actually taken a look at quite a few times here on the channel. So basically they've included some little vehicles and stuff, like some, military vehicles that you can use to include in a lot of the different kaiju images and displays that you could think about creating. They have included those with the Allosaurus, which I think is pretty cool and definitely a fun addition. Though it isn't technically a kaiju or anything, but it is still cool to have that stuff included. But of course, we've got the star of the show, which is our Gwangi, and look at how incredibly cool this figure is. They have done a fantastic job on this, especially as far as like the way that the texturing and everything should look on it. I feel like they did a pretty good job as far as that goes, and replicating it. I have to kind of reposition the pieces of the tail so it sits in line with the way it should, but they have done a very good job not just on that, but also when it comes to the color. Some people might look at this and be like, what? It's a purple dinosaur. Do we have Barney? Well, if you actually go back and watch the Valley of Gwangi, there are so many different areas of that film where Gwangi looks purple. A lot of the time, I think it's usually kind of basically accepted in looking like a gray, but it does have a strong purplish tint in many different scenes in the film. And I remember at one point when I was painting a Gwangi, I had the hardest time deciding if I was going with the purple route or if I was going with the gray route. And I usually go with the gray route, but as you can see, they've chosen to go with the purple color for it. And I would honestly say that's the perfect choice for a Valley of Gwangi Allosaurus action figure, because I just feel like it's a color that's really going to help this one stand out and differentiate it from so many other old school gray dinosaurs. Like you've got like the 1 million years BC Allosaurus that is kind of similar looking to the Valley of Gwangi Allosaurus. So it is nice to have one like this that does, kind of set it apart from the others. If we bring it in nice and close and get a closer look, you can see, starting here in the head sculpt, it absolutely shares the likeness of the Allosaurus from the Valley of Gwangi. We have all of the very impressive skin texture and skin detail. You can see the nostrils right there. We also have the ear here on the back of the head. The eye is painted with a white, then a brown, and a black pupil. The mouth currently is open a little bit, so we can see the teeth. The teeth are all painted with a light yellow. They're all sculpted individually, which is a very nice touch. Of course, you don't want them to be all kind of blended together, and they look very good. They also have a bit of a genuine sharp look to them, which is nice. We have the tongue there sculpted out on the inside of the mouth, painted with a pinkish tone, and the entire inside of the mouth has that pinkish tone. And of course, you have an articulated jaw, so you can open and close the jaw for the Allosaurus, and that looks pretty good. You can see it doesn't close absolutely perfectly, but works pretty nice overall. Now, these figures are usually the string articulation, so you do have some very nice mobility, and you can see one articulated joint right here in this spot of the head and neck of the Allosaurus, and that area can also go up and down a little bit, but then you also have another spot right here, so you can get those really sharp, whoop, I almost fell because he slid, but those really sharp turns to the head and neck. This figure would honestly be so good to create some stop motion scenes with, and I would love to see somebody do that, because again, it is a dinosaur that was created using stop motion initially, so it would be fun to see new stop motion with this version. And actually, looking over here at this side of the head, I must say I did make a mistake. I stated that it was a brown. Oh, it's actually a red for the eye, not a brown. But as you move up to the top of the head, you can see again the skin texture looking pretty nice. The dinosaur does have a little bit of a satin shine in some areas, but not all the way through. You can kind of see it doesn't have so much of a satin shine right there. But as you move down the back of the neck, again, the skin texture looks really good. You can see kind of like some creasing and everything. As you move down the neck, a few kind of wrinkles and folds in the skin as you lead around the side of the neck into the underside here of the throat, and you have a very different style of skin texture as you do move into the throat. You can also articulate the head up and down, which I didn't really state, so again, more mobility for the dinosaur. You can get a good feel for, again, how that all works. With the string articulation, it just makes it a bit easier to articulate the figure than some other methods of articulation. As you move down into the body, again, the skin texture and scales kind of pick up in size. They definitely get a good bit larger. You start to kind of see like some osteoderms moving over the back of the dinosaur that does follow along the spinal column all the way down. Leading out into the arm, we have a very nicely sculpted arm, and leading into the fingers, you can see the fingers themselves are sculpted, and the claws are kind of painted, it looks like, with maybe a slightly darker shade of a purple. Or maybe they're just unpainted. I'm not actually entirely sure. Kind of looks like they're a little bit of a darker purple. But you can, of course, articulate the arms. And again, with them being string articulation, that allows you to kind of bring them out away from the body so you can wave hello, bring them back into the body, lift them up, put them back. It's really up to you where you want to articulate them, but they as well, again, work quite nicely. You also have midsection articulation, which you can see here, which can get you some nice left and right turns, and then of course a little up and down as well. Not a whole lot, but the string articulation on this one actually feels quite stiff, which in my opinion is not at all a bad thing, because sometimes it's just like with figures similar to this, sometimes it's a little bit too loose. I've never really had that problem with any Ricsan Custom Toys release, but I do notice how nice and stiff the articulation is on this one. And again, as I stated, that is not a bad thing, it's a very good thing. As we move down into the leg, you can not only see the scales and everything, you can also see kind of like an armored scoot-like appearance moving down the front of the thigh. We can also take note to the musculature, and then moving down we have the knee. We also have a bit of a calf muscle back here, and then as you lead all the way down into the foot sculpt, you have the toes sculpted quite nicely, kind of like some scoots down the toes, and then again the claws sculpted nicely. And again, this time it definitely looks like the claws don't have any actual extra paintwork to it. It is kind of hard to tell though. It almost sort of looks like it has a darker purple, but for the most part I think they are unpainted. You can see the dew claws, same deal, but they are sculpted out back here. As far as the articulation goes, you can move the leg forward and back, and then also out away from the body. Same deal for the knee, again forward and back, can swivel. You can also articulate down here, forward and back, also can swivel. And then it looks like maybe, yep, okay, so we've got another spot right here which can go and nicely swivel, and also again go forward and back to help you create different poses for your Allosaurus. And then we lead out into the tail, and as we do so, you can see the skin texture continues to look really nice as you lead the entire way through, all the way out to the tip of the tail. And then of course you've got a whole bunch of articulated joints, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, leading the entire way out through the tail, allowing you to again pose and articulate the tail pretty much however you would like to get some really, really nice different displays for your Allosaurus, however you would like to display it. So that as well is really, really cool. And just like you would expect when you look at it from the opposing side, there's not really much in the way of any sort of difference you'll see from one side to the other. It looks pretty much the same since it is just a, fully posable and articulated figure. You're not going to see much when it comes to a difference from one side to the other. But you can also see, again, all of the kind of like osteoderms moving down along the back of the tail and the very different style of skin texture for the underside of the Allosaurus. But that thing is so next level cool. As far as a size goes, for a height, you are looking at about 6 inches or a little bit over 15 centimeters. And then for a length from the tail to the head there, about 10¼ inches, or right around 26 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Valley of Gwangi Allosaurus. And you can see that the Allosaurus is very similar in size to the Papo T-Rex, at least as far as a height goes. Not quite the same amount of body mass, but overall they are quite similar. Now the problem is, when it comes to dinosaur figures like this, there aren't nearly as many as you would expect, especially when it comes to vintage style dinosaurs. You don't see those too often, and you really don't see them articulated, so that's one of the many reasons why I'm so excited about this figure, but it also makes it kind of hard to come up with comparisons, so we'll just go ahead and do a few randoms. And I think some of the best random comparisons I can give you would be of similar style figures, which would mostly be kaiju. And you can see when it comes to the 2014 Hiya Toys Godzilla, they are very close to the same size as far as a height goes, but a little more bulkiness on Godzilla. Once we bring in my one and only SH Monster Arts Godzilla, though, you can see that these two are extremely similar in size. And you're going to see pretty much the same thing if we bring in a few of the Ricsan Custom Toys figures, as we have the Stan Winston Godzilla, which is just a hair smaller, but very similar overall in size. And it's exactly the same case with their King Kong, which is slightly taller, but overall very similar. And again, same deal when we bring in the Titanosaurus from Bandai, very similar in size, just slightly taller thanks to that fin on the top of its head. And then just a few random dinosaur comparisons. We have a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to our Allosaurus. The Schleich Diabloceratops, which is clearly a lot smaller. And the Safari Ltd Eutyrannus, which as well is a lot smaller. So this brand new Ricsan Custom Toys Super Articulated Valley of Gwangi Allosaurus is fantastic. They definitely did a great job of sculpting this out to really quite nicely resemble the Allosaurus from the film, and also give it some very vibrant skin texture and scale detail. I think Ricsan Custom Toys overall has been very good when it comes to actually capturing the overall likeness of the creatures that they create. And they again have done a good job with this Allosaurus. The only area that does look a little bit different, I would say, is the skin texture of the tail, as the version in the film does have a little bit of a different look to it. But for the most part, I think it very nicely replicates a Gwangi Allosaurus, and in general replicates a very nice vintage style Allosaurus. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Valley of Gwangi version, because it without a doubt is a very, very good interpretation of what Allosaurus was once believed to look like. So they've done a pretty good job of just in general giving us that vintage style Allosaurus. And when it comes to vintage theropods, more often than not, you usually get a T-Rex, so it is fun to have an old school style Allosaurus. The articulation is also really well done. Of course, it works very nicely and allows pretty much any and every pose that you could possibly want. And it does have that purplish tone of color, which again, some people may look at it and be like, well, I wish it was more of a gray, because that's kind of the color it more often sort of resembles. But I like the purple, because the purple is like that perfect kind of action figure type of a color, which is exactly what this is. It is an action figure, so it works very nicely, I think, for the figure. So without a doubt, this is a very much so high recommendation from me. If you are interested in picking this up and adding it to your collection, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on the Ricsan Custom Toys website. So check that link, definitely pick this up, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.